current educational system. I said, what's wrong with it? And the biggest problem that I found was it didn't know how to motivate kids.
Every person alive, it's in our DNA to be motivated. I think the current model, and I'm not picking out any players, the current model is just really good at squashing that motivation.
How can you make that 9-year-old sit in a class and say, do me 17 times tables? What for?
But I think that's the mistake that most of the education technology has been going in, is that they just want to take what's already there in the current existing model and just use the latest technology to make in their mind, a more refined version of that same thing. But they're not changing the content fundamentally.
In education, we provide problems separate from the relevance or the context in which they need to be used. That's one of the reasons why students are so disengaged. In the video game world, it's all about exploration. You solve a problem when you bump into it, and in fact, that provides the relevance for solving the problem.
In order for educational technology to be successful in the classroom, we're going to have to marry the ecosystem of the way technology works with the ecosystem of the classroom itself. The goal of this is to get teachers doing higher order things and let the computers do the more basic things of is 2 + 2 = 4 and all of the practice that is necessary.
There appears to be no limit to this, that children can teach themselves almost anything if given the internet, given the permission to interact with each other, and given the absence of the teacher. The absence of the teacher in the presence of the internet can become a pedagogical tool.
We want technology that helps us create an environment where students are active and engaged, not just in memorizing facts.
Scientists recently told the world that Pluto is not a planet anymore, but it's going to take literally a decade to remove that fact from the United States' science textbooks. With connections, because anyone is able to improve on the materials and keep things up to date, we can make that change in 10 minutes rather than 10 years.
How do you motivate a kid? How do you keep a kid engaged? How do you keep them interested? That is all psychology. When the gamers went and they created the best video games that ever existed, they didn't sit down and say, hey, you know, what is the cognitive science behind this? They didn't do that. They just did it. They created it. And now all the cognitive scientists are coming back and saying, what did you do? Because that's actually one of the most motivating, engaging media we've ever seen. And the video game programmers all said, I just created something that I would want to play.
A 5-year-old today, by the time he's 25, it's going to be 2031. Can any teacher say that they're preparing that child for 2031, for an unknown world? But I believe that I can make a curriculum for that teacher. And that curriculum needs to have only 3 things in it. Reading comprehension is the most critical skill at this point in time for a generation that's going to read off screens for the rest of their lives. Information search and retrieval skills. If people know what are keywords, follow a link or not, it's a key skill. If arithmetic is an outdated skill, this is the skill that will replace it. And finally, if a child knows how to read, if a child knows how to search for information, how do we teach them how to believe? See, in our adult heads, each one of us has a little mechanism. It comes from different places. You and I have different mechanisms of how to believe. Sometimes we say, this is obvious. Sometimes you say, because so-and-so told me. Sometimes you say, this is rubbish. What's that machine inside? How early in a child's life can we put that in there? If we can do it really, really early, then we would have armed that child against doctrine. And I don't mean only religious doctrine. I mean doctrine in all its forms. I think our job as educators, the biggest job in today's information-saturated world, is to give the child an armor against doctrine. Just as in another generation we used to teach a child how to fight with a sword and how to ride a horse.